Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is the Chronicles of the Bear With Me projects, and today I'm going to discuss some practical ways that we can be involved in educating people, being aware, and also interventions that we can easily do through the use of our phone. So, without further ado, I am going to show you the slides. Right here is the QR code for Human Trafficking Hotline. You could see that on my far left, you can see that kind of like a bird of paradise, and this is like a 24/7 QR code where whatever part of the world you're at, you can actually get into a hotline so that you can make a reporting and something can get started in regards to human trafficking. So let's say you come across a situation where if you're a healthcare provider, somebody had particular tattoos on their body that signifies that they are owned by somebody, or there is a person sort of overseeing, kind of like a very overbearing person keeping an eye on the patient. Then that is one of the signs that this person could be human trafficked, especially if the person is very controlling and trying to speak for that person. It could just be an abusive family members, but it could also be a complete stranger trying to uh, control that person. So there are certain injuries that they can incur, and they could have a miscarriage or whatever, and maybe there was a reason to bring that person, and they wanted to keep that particular person because they were either useful for prostitution or they are useful for labor. Or it could be a child that is being trafficked and doesn't understand and kind of like depending on an older person. But there are telltale signs with these people that are being trafficked. There are cases where let's say the person is in looking like a prostitute, but actually the person is only just 14 years old, and it is obvious that they were trafficked. It could be somebody that um, is being accompanied by an older person pretending to, acting like its father, but at the same time, you could sense that something is going on in that household, and this child really doesn't belong in that house. So there are things that you could put, and it goes by your country, your state, and so on and so forth. And it's really not that hard. And I think I need to kind of demonstrate it a little bit. And let's put the QR code. Okay, so I have a very old phone. So scan using camera. So you take your phone and you flush it on the actual QR code, and there you go. Okay, and so you press the website. Okay, there's language, so there's English, Spanish, Dutch, Creole, Roman, Magyar, there's Vietnamese. So I press English, done, and then you go to a country. So we're in the United States, so I'm going to press that map, and then I go to United States, and then I press go, state, whatever state you want to put in there, go, and then you're going to put yes, I've experienced this. It has a question. If you answered yes, you may be a victim of human trafficking. Beware of fake ads for modeling or acting. Beware of who befriends you online at the mall when out. Be wary of people who buy you jewelry or other unsolicited gifts. Traffickers target vulnerable individuals, particularly those who have been abused. So let's say a teenager goes online and thought she was meeting somebody, you know, who's also 15, comes to find out it's actually a 35-year-old person. But this child has invested so much time chatting with this person. And, you know, just like every teenager, they'll have a problem with their mom or their dad, and this person is going to be like the listening ear, and the person is going to kind of win the heart of that person. So there's kind of like love bombing. There's also kind of like this father figure. It could be like boyfriending technique, and so on and so forth. And you can be further educated when you go on YouTube. Personally, for me, I've done many of these research about like from 2016. During that time, there was, you know, right before the election, a lot of things came out with, you know, Hillary Clinton and Podesta. Now, however much you wanted to take out of that, but the bottom line there is a lot of people started digging into what is going on with some of these campaign managers using very weird artwork and parading it in their household like it's a perfect work, you know, like a beautiful work of art, when it's actually like torture of children. And more and more of the satanic ritual abuse started to get exposed. And um, I remember looking into, you know, this rabbit hole for it. And back in the days, I never even knew that there are such things as QR codes for these things, okay? This might be very new, or maybe it was in the making, but I didn't know. So there's do not hesitate. It's another one of those QR codes, and a movement in the direction of freedom that is set free, and they do a lot in different countries, and one of them is human trafficking. The one that I found that is in California is called, it's very easy to remember, it's called Cast LA. Now, it's not an acting gig, it's not an acting agency, it's not, you know, casting for a movie. It's just you know, coalition for abolition of and training for trafficking, something like that. So CAST has a hotline, and the number is 1-888 key to free. You don't actually need to put the last E, but it's key to free, so it's easy to remember. So I'm just giving you ideas. These QR codes come in handy because imagine the ability to be able to just take photos of it. Okay, you can just take photo of it on your phone, and you can get that QR. There's even QR codes for your human rights, and that is basically, you know, like articles where it says that, you know, you should not be sold, and that there's a value to humankind. So you can put these QR codes in just about anything. You can put it on a shirt, although I would not want to put it on a sleeve. That's kind of weird. I wouldn't want to put it, you know, on your forehead, for example. That's an odd thing. But putting it on a clothing, like I would put it on the bottom left, and this is an idea that I have for like um, human trafficking awareness, is to have shirts that have a barcode so they can easily take a picture of it. So if you're a righty, you could take a picture of that from the bottom of your clothing, or you can have a hat that has, you know, on the design there's a centerpiece where it you can, you know, capture the QR code. If you already know set free and all that, then it's easy for you. There's also an app to stop human trafficking. So these are just ideas that I'm giving out so that people understand that there is traction in terms of how human trafficking is being exposed compared to how it was 2016. 2016, 7 years ago, I remember it was kind of like all these things come out like a big shocker, and most people couldn't even believe it, that they don't think that human trafficking is happening in modern days, but it's very real, and so is satanic ritual abuse. So going on with the next slide, education is the key. There's different ways that people get trafficked, and these are just kind of symbolism, the left and the right. You can see that it is a sign that's showing that human trafficking is real, and it's basically selling people. So they view human beings as a product. And a lot of the people that are in the narcotics division selling drugs moved on into human trafficking because they figured out it's much more lucrative and no one's going after them. Give an example for a situation. if there was a child who was 15 or 17 or 22, doesn't matter the age, if that person is basically trafficked, it can it, it can be in the United States, an American that is trafficked here, okay? All they had to do is say, if you ever say anything, we're gonna kill your family members, or we're gonna, they know each individual very well, because half the time before the person get trafficked, they are groomed from 3 to 6 months on end, maybe even more, depending on the kind of groomers that you're gonna have. Um, they can even target people straight out of a church. For example, a child is going and getting prayer. She's 16-year-old, and there is a person there who is practically a pimp, but they're women, okay? And or they could be somebody at almost the same age as this girl, and they will come into church and be kind of discreet and get to know the people there a bit. And they are basically shopping. They are shopping for the kind of girls that they wanted. Maybe somebody's asking for a virgin, or somebody's asking for, a blonde girl, a black girl. It could be a black boy. It could be a Hispanic. Whatever it is that fits the bill of somebody who wants to buy a particular child or a particular teenager, they can send a woman who is, kind of discreetly going in there, and everybody assumed that, oh, she's just like a lady that's, interested in the church, but, she's a little quiet, so she just comes in and out. And when they come, or they can just be visiting on certain, certain holidays, and they can spot the women that they could abduct, and because they can kind of have a small talk with them. And most of these people are very, very intuitive. At the very least, they're good listeners. They can love bomb anybody, and they are trained to make anybody fall in love with them. And so it is not that hard to actually get their victims, because whether it's through force or whether it's through fraud, okay, somebody going online, frauding somebody, with a better life, for example, you're gonna get the job that you wanted. We know that the director, and if you come with us, and you know me, like, we can make things happen. This person, like that I brought last time. Okay, think about it. Like, she's famous now, or she's making good money, and you're even prettier than this person, or you're a hot looking young man. You should really come. We need to go to this party. You'll never know. And so there's all these empty promises, but you know they are getting get what they wanted. These traffickers. So there's also coercions where, let's say somebody is heavily on drugs and they owe somebody money, and they desperately needed the cocaine. And this person says, well, you can come with me, and then, that'll be your payment. Or they can place a person in someone else's house because that person owes them money for drugs. Meanwhile, this family can keep an eye on this young girl, and all they have to do is feed her, clothe her, and tell her that, agree with her that her parents doesn't love her, and so on and so forth. So there are these things that happen, and we have to be very careful, and we need to educate, especially teenagers. um, in this page, I'm just kind of showing you that there are ways to promote this QR code where it could be useful for people. I mean, just for example, either putting it on your phone, it looks kind of slick, and you can kind of show children, and even in like even kids, that they have to be very careful, and you can have that as a talking point. And you can even like get a design, and it has a bear, and you poke it in the middle, or and you scan it, and there you go. Here comes the website. Okay, so I just want to show that quickly. Now that was easy. That's the easy part, is to actually you know get the information that's right in your hand through scanning, and you can then prevent human trafficking, or you could educate somebody. um, there are pictures that I'm going to show you that makes it kind of easy when it comes down to communicating with people. Okay, this one here, I might as well skip for now, because this is like a story that I wanted to create, which is basically, you know, Petey is a grizzly and Polly is a polar bear, and they're both talking about, you know, issues about, abduction, or, things that kind of pertain into human trafficking, but talking about it in terms of their cubs and stuff. So you can create stories like that where you can kind of relate it to children. And another easy way, especially for teenagers, since they're a little bit more sophisticated, um, is showing them these artworks. And like, these are not necessarily artwork, these are depictions of human trafficking. um, on the far left, it shows you the barcode, and like I showed you before, there's humans with barcodes. That means that, they don't necessarily have to have that, but humans are being sold, and this is illegal. This is completely wrong. And there are different reasons people get trafficked, besides forced prostitution, which is very obvious. There are also quite a bit of male boys that are being used and abducted, and they're being used for prostitution. One example is in Fortaleza, I think it's in Brazil. There's children, generational children being used for pedophilia, and they basically are prostituted at a very young age, from age 6 even, and maybe even younger. And they can use cyber prostitution and utilizes children. And they can also use them for parts. They can use them for forced labor, baby selling. They can use women, as a surrogate if they wanted to, and they can use them for forced beggar, and trafficking them in another country is one other one. Action is recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting a person. Those are the actions. Through force, fraud, or coercion. Minors included in the commercial sex are tip victims, regardless of force, fraud, or coercion. Children may not understand, they don't know that they are being forced, but anytime a child is in the possession of a person that's not their parents, that is part of coercion. The child can just be heavily brainwashed, or there's kind of like they, it's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome. For the purpose of forced labor, involuntary servitude, debt bondage, which is basically they're being used for payment, slavery, let's say uh, debt debt bondage is kind of like somebody owes a lot of money in drugs, and as a payment, they'll have to surrender their child. Um, Slavery is obvious, that's basically, utilizing them for forced labor, pretty much. And they can also, sell them. Maybe they like looking at them, or they can torture them and do all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, the commercial sex. So, moving. Well, that's pretty much all I could show you for now. And I wanted to leave you with a wonderful thank you from all the bears. This is a very highly productive grizzly with 4 cubs, and I pray that you learned something today, and that you find it relatively easy to understand. And last but not the least, so before I go, I wanted to leave you with this message from Luke 19:10. The Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. So thank you and God bless. And I hope that you got something out of this, or at least inspired you that you can do something about human trafficking. And with your effort and my effort and all of our efforts, we can put a stamp on human trafficking. Thank you.